Our speaker has been the Deputy Director of the Trade and Agriculture Directorate at the Organization for Economic Cooperation. And he has also served as a Chief Economist for the Government of Dubai. Please welcome Dr. Raed Safadi, the Executive Director, Department of Economic Development, Government of Dubai.
It is a fantastic topic, talking about the SME. You've heard these stylized facts about, their role in economic development, how, they're the backbone of any economy, be it developing, or OECD for that matter. So it is a subject that is close to the development economists, and most importantly, to the policy wonks, people like myself. And it so happened that last year, I was called by the G20 and the B20 to lead a team to look into the barriers that SMEs face in integrating in the global economy. And that was a critical subject that assumes that SMEs actually need to integrate in global markets, that is, to export and to import. That also assumes that this activity is a critical element in their development, and that also assumes that there are disproportionate barriers that that sector, the SME, faces in the global economy. So we worked, I led a team with colleagues at the World Bank to try and see what is it that actually prevents these SMEs from exporting. The first thing that we discovered actually was there's a lack of data. So if you look at gross exports of SMEs, you will find that very few of them actually engage in direct exports, right? Less than 20% globally on average. But then you thought, why not look into the indirect exports, which means what the SMEs actually engage within their national economy, within a multinational enterprise, and then use them as a step to actually export and eventually go into global markets. And why is this important? It is not just about economies of scale in the sense that you enlarge the size of the market, but it's also in terms of actually getting into the world economy, world markets, getting to know what the tastes are, what the trends are, and the challenges and the opportunities to be had. So if I want you to take that steps, what kind of support a government needs to give to those SMEs to integrate into global markets? The first thing that you discover is that actually world trade has gone into a very fundamental structural transformation. And that transformation means what? At the end of the day, there is no one who produces a car or a computer in all its parts and components. If you open an Apple computer, there are more than 28 different countries with more than 800 suppliers, that participate in the production of any Apple product. To the point that if you look at China's exports of Apple computers, the factory gate price of any product, let's say it's $100, what is the domestic value added in China is no more than $6.50 per $100 exported from China, right? The rest of the production is parts and components spread across as I said, more than 25 different sites across the globe. So you have, of course, the services providers, those who are sitting, in Germany, in France, in California, developing the software, and there are all these parts and components that are in Thailand, Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, and what have you. So this gives rise to a very important aspect for the SME, which is you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can be trading in one part and one component within that value chain. And that value chain is what characterizes today's world trade. A global value chain, a supply chain that extends beyond borders in a truly globalized world trade and world economy. And that is a quintessential element in not just the participation of SMEs into these markets, but also to upgrade their skills and climb the ladder. So it is not about actually penetration, is that not just that, it is about getting into those markets and then upgrading the skills. So what is the, when you look at it, what is the first thing that you will discover as a barrier? Is actually the SMEs find it very difficult to respect or to assimilate the different standards and certification requirements across the whole gamut of goods, whether you're talking about manufactured goods, services goods, or agricultural goods. So international law in here talks about sanitary and phytosanitary measures in the agricultural field, but then how to translate these measures into some actions that an SME can take in order to take advantage of these markets. Knowing very well that international markets such as the EU, Dubai, will not actually lower their health standards in order to import from an SME. So the SME has to raise its level, its game, its competence, its know-how to be able to actually get into markets such as the UAE and elsewhere. And that is actually a very important point, because whilst a large corporation can actually nominate and have staff dealing with all these standards across the globe and different standards in different markets, the SME can ill afford to actually do this. And here, policy has a role to play in terms of ensuring that there are not multiple standards, but a minimum standards across, right? And that those standards are transferred to the SME, local SME, through training and capacity building initiatives. And this is a role of government. And why it is the government? Because there is certainly here a market failure. Left on their own, those SMEs will not be able to actually do what they're supposed to do, export in order to upgrade their skills and in order to grow. And then when you look at the structure of the global trade, you'll discover that actually services embedded in goods make up a large proportion of the value of the good. So you take a car, you take a refrigerator. How much do you think services are embedded in that one product? 25% to 28% of any manufactured product is actually services. Services, whether they're talking about, before sale, after sale, design, after sales maintenance, you name it, delivery, transport, all these things, finance, of course, all these things are part and parcel of a manufactured product. So you don't need to actually think of first producing a car. You can produce, try and look into one part and a component where you can innovate. And certainly you can not just think of a manufactured product, but an idea, a service. What kind of service you can actually deliver in an efficient and innovative manner and get into that market. And lo and behold, you raise your game in order to, and you upgrade the skills, and of course you take on market shares. So this is an important aspect in the whole game that has to do with the certification requirements and the standards. These are real barriers that SMEs face, and in Dubai there are initiatives, ongoing initiatives, to actually transfer those barriers and transfer the solutions to the SMEs to help them penetrate these markets. And this is, the result is before us. If you look at Dubai's SME sector, we just heard from His Excellency Abdul Basit, they make up 95% of the licenses that are delivered in Dubai, right? And 51% of these actually export. And that's a phenomenal number when you also compare it with a country like New Zealand that does not exceed 18% in terms of the export. And of those who export, of those 60%, no, 51%, excuse me, SMEs that export, 60% of them derive at least 20% of their income from abroad. And if you look at those particular SMEs, you see their growth surpassing the growth of the SMEs that don't export. So the proof is in the pudding, which means that you actually need to export, and not only just to maintain, but to upgrade your market shares. This is a critical message. Now, you talk about the certificates, the certification and the stance. Then comes a very important aspect in the macroeconomics environment. The speaker before me spoke about, the implicit or what any SME has to deal with internally. So I'm talking to you about the external environment that SMEs have to actually contend with in order to operate and then eventually grow. So one of the basic elements that, for SMEs to grow and, after it is established, of course, is this access to finance. The access to finance, if you look around the experiences across the globe, there are many, many innovative ways where the public sector comes in to underwrite the risk, to share the risk, and what have you. But still, there are no long-term solutions, and certainly there is no one-size-fits-all. And that is a very important aspect. In here, you go into a partnership with these SMEs and try to actually provide those services that cost them money, and then wait until you get paid as a public sector until this SME stand on its own. So you provide, for example, business advisory services here in Dubai for the SMEs. And why is that? Because, as I said, the number one aspect that these guys need to learn is not only that there are markets out there for their own products and ideas and services, but there are also standards that they have to respect before they can even think of penetrating those markets. And therefore, my role, as a government, is to ensure that they have a full understanding of these standards, and then I train them, in terms of so that they can raise their level. So that's one thing, in terms of access to finance, you can do it in an indirect way, meaning you take on the costs that an SME would have had to pay before it participated. It is not just about, financing directly an SME, but financing it indirectly through also another initiative in Dubai is to provide them with the space, right? Incubators, if you will, where they sit, and then you postpone their expenditures in terms of rent. So for a period of time, they are allocated space and the infrastructure, the physical infrastructure, so that they can actually start their business. So that's another way of indirect financing. And then comes the big item of them all, which is the connectivity agenda, what is called in the, if you read in the books about the connectivity agenda, which means how do I actually, as a policymaker, cut your costs to go from your factory gate, whatever it is, or a service, from your terminal to the next point of shipment, whether it's a seaport, airport, or what have you. The connectivity agenda is a quintessential element in the survival and the upgrading of SMEs. And that, in the case of Dubai, it is very evident to you. The airports, the seaports, what is not less evident maybe is the efficiency within which these hard infrastructure operate, and this is really critical. Whereas for a large corporation, it can take on transactional costs that are a bit off scale. An SME, for an SME, it means it's a choice between participating or not participating, right? And the value chain has not just an aspect about the export. In order for an SME to be able to participate and be upgraded, it has to also import. So efficiency of imports is as important as the efficiency of exports. For us, from the Dubai's perspective, the task before us is to actually see how best we can minimize the delays in importation and minimize the delays in exportation. And there are innovative ways in doing this, despite the fact that the connectivity in physical infrastructure in Dubai is world-class and very competitive in that manner. So our role in here, from a policy perspective, is to actually minimize those transactional costs. And that's another way of actually helping leveling the playing field between an SME and a large corporation. Again, these services are not just targeted at SMEs, but targeted at the whole economy. But how do SMEs benefit? Because we're leveling the playing field between them and the large corporations, and that's an important aspect. So all this to say that there are market imperfections that prevent SMEs from participating in global markets and from upgrading their skills, and there are policy initiatives that governments can take in order to help level the playing field for these SMEs. Dubai sets an example across a whole gamut of things. And you understand it very well. I don't need to give you straight up money. I can actually underwrite some of the costs, as I just explained. Some of the disproportionate also costs that you may incur as you try to launch your business idea or your innovation and what have you. And that is a quintessential part in the cocktail to help SMEs participate, upgrade in global markets. Thank you so much. I am here to answer any question you may have. We're here to help. We're partners in this. Thank you.